How do the New York Yankees let Joe Girardi go? He almost made it to the World Series. He was one game away with a team that nobody expected to be there. How does it happen? And what it has to do with hockey. Seriously, I know this is a hockey talk show, but that is just a colossal error. Biggest error of the Yankees so far in the last 10, 15 years. Biggest error of Brian Cashman's career. I think he's a brilliant general manager, super underrated. He's made a ton of brilliant moves, a lot of criticism, still made great moves. I just don't know how the hell you let Joe Girardi go. It's just insane to me. Guy's a hell of a manager. Hell of a manager. It makes me really regret the Mets naming Mickey Callaway their manager. They should have waited till the season was over so they could interview all the candidates. Could you imagine Girardi in the Mets pinstripes? Oh, that would have been amazing. But it's the Mets, and I'm a Met fan, and nothing can go right for us. How does this tie into hockey? Well, now Alain Vigneault is the longest tenured coach in the New York sports scene. That's right. He was hired by the New York Rangers in June of 2013. June of 2013. So 4 years on the job for Alain Vigneault. He is now the longest tenured coach in New York sports. Congratulations to AV. Hell of a guy. Let's get into the hockey talk show. Lots to go over. Want to talk Vegas Golden Knights for sure. Shipachyov specifically. But we got to touch base and follow up again on what we talked about on the last hockey talk show. If you haven't seen it, go to the EHM. It's the radio station I work for. Sorry, that was the flub. If you haven't seen it, go to the Hockey Talk Show Facebook page at Hockey Talk Show. That's at Hockey Talk Show. Or head on over to the YouTube account. Just search Hockey Talk Show over there. You can get all these links on our website, hockeytalkshow.com. And if you're listening on a podcatcher, TuneIn, or iTunes, or Stitcher, or whatever, it's up there as well. We talked in length about Joshua Ho-Sang being sent down by the New York Islanders. And one of the big criticisms that I had for the Islanders was their inability to communicate a reason why. I wanted to know why. I got a reason today. I'd like to have that reason yesterday when it actually happens. I think that would have been a good thing. I think that Doug Weight has this one wrong. I really do. And I don't know if I'm in any position to question Doug Weight, but I do have a microphone and there is a camera pointed at me, so I must be some sort of an expert. Let's go to NHL.com and take a look at what he had to say on sending Joshua Ho-Sang down to the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. He elaborated on the, quote, tough decision to assign Ho-Sang to the Sound Tigers, said in part it was due to the Islanders activating Alan Quine off injured reserve and being over the 23-man roster limit. Wrong. Wade said it was a tough decision for Josh, where he's come in 12 months. He's been an awesome pro for us. There's no issues with Joshua Ho-Sang. His game is better. He needs to work on some structure and work on some things. We had a great talk the last couple of days and obviously yesterday, and he's in a good place and he's going to get good coaching down in Bridgeport, play a lot of minutes, and that's important for him right now in his process. Wrong. Here's the thing. And with the New York Islanders and Garth So especially, you're dealing with one of the most patient general managers I've ever seen. You know, we were just going over Marc Bergevin, and his team is sinking up there in Montreal. And what did he say? I'm going to have patience. Those guys in that room have to fix it. I'm not going to get my pocket picked and sell somebody off for pennies on the dollar to get somebody else who's not going to help. I'm going to be patient. Players need to be confident. General managers need to be patient. That's what makes good hockey teams. Coaches just got to study a lot. That's it. They got to look at a lot of game tape and come up with the right thing to say to players. Garth Snow, in the course of his career, has never really lost his patience. One time I can think of where Garth Snow lost his patience, and that was the Thomas Vanek deal. He made a move for Thomas Vanek. He saw the bad, slow start for the New York Islanders. He decided to make a move October 29th, I want to say it was. That was the only time I really saw him lose his patience, selling off Matt Molson. They never really recovered from that, the Islanders. It really super affected John Tavares. It was the first time in his young career that somebody that he was very close to, sort of was growing up in the game with, was traded away for him. Now, in hindsight, it's not that bad of a deal. It really isn't, but it was a rare moment for Garth Snow. Now, he probably felt like we're sliding here, and I want to try and stop that slide and spark these guys. So I understand, but I think it was one of the rare times where he lost patience. I think you could have probably made that deal maybe a couple of games down the line. I think maybe you kind of let it go a little bit more, and Jack Capuano gets the axe a little bit earlier than he eventually wound up getting anyway for slow starts and bad seasons. So hindsight's 20. I get it. I get it. But I'm just saying, you know, you're looking at a guy in Garth Snow who decided on a rebuild and never, ever, ever strayed from that, you know, that vision. Never. Except for that one moment of weakness. And it wasn't really all that bad is what my point is. But you're dealing with a very, very patient general manager. He'll take his time, especially developing young talent, which, let's be honest, you know, he's not really the greatest at. I mean, John Tavares was a given. Josh Bailey has never really amounted to what he should have been. Kyle Okposo, who was not his pick, but he nurtured up through the organization. I don't think Kyle ever really made it to where most people thought he was. He's had a couple of good stretches and good seasons, but never really been that consistent top six forward that you can really count on. Who else? You know, Franz Nielsen wound up leaving, preferred Detroit and less money in term just to get out of the island, which was heartbreaking for a lot of Islander fans, I know. So he hasn't been the best at necessarily drafting and nurturing talent all the way through. He's phenomenal at spotting talent and acquiring players. He took Matty Molson from nothing and made him a 30-goal scorer, played him with Tavares. That certainly does help. Grice, come on. I mean, Grice was a career backup up until he came to the island. You know, so he's had his... Garth has had this ability to find those, you know, rough spots in the crowd. But overall, this is a bad move, man. This is a bad move. You look at the Islanders lineup again, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. I'm really not. But you look at the Islanders lineup here, and I can't help but see 4 fourth-line players in this mix. Chimera, Kuhlman, Cizikas, Clutterbuck. There's 4 fourth-liners on this team. Top 2 lines are fine. Third line would be great with Josh Hosang on it. Chimera should be down playing with Cizikas and Clutterbuck. It's a great fourth line with a bit of speed and a little bit of scoring touch. That's a nice-looking team. Alan Quine, I think, is a fine player. I love the goal he scored against Florida. It was a huge help at the time. But if you're going to tell me that Alan Quine makes this team better, I'm going to have a hard time believing you. If you're going to tell me that Alan Quine's a better player than Joshua Hosang, wrong. You think that Alan Quine's going to be a better player than Joshua Hosang tomorrow or 2 weeks from now? Wrong. Do you think Alan Quine is going to be a better player than Joshua Hosang 5 years from now? No, he's not. So why is he forcing your hand? What are you afraid of? Losing Alan Quine on waivers? I don't understand the Islanders' inability to allow their young guys to play in the National Hockey League and stay there. Play him on the third line. Sit him when you have to. I'd rather see Joshua Hosang on the third line and lose a couple of shifts and play 8 minutes a game versus him be down in Bridgeport. He's not going to become a better player in Bridgeport. Why? Because he blows a defensive assignment every now and then? Because he doesn't know his routes coming up the ice? He was your best puck carrier on the power play all throughout the preseason and in every game he played in. and he's now in the A because you had to make space for Alan Quine? What are we talking about here? What are we honestly talking about? I mean, they have this ability to just stick onto these guys. Shane Prince is a fine young hockey player. Does he deserve a spot on this roster? Absolutely not. He couldn't hack it in Ottawa. He got traded. It was a nice pickup. You give him some playing time. You see if he can catch on. You see if he can catch that Rob Shrimp spark there. Remember Shrimpy? Was that his name? Shrimp? That was his name, right? 13. Amazing hands, unbelievable ability, scored some wild goals, made things exciting. He's not a full-time hockey player. Neither is Shane Prince, and neither is Alan Quine. They're great young players. They're great third-line guys. You don't need that role on this team is already filled. This team should have a third line that has as much threat of scoring as the top two lines do. Yet their guy is sitting in the American Hockey League right now. Come on, man. Come on. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying one player's ability to get back on D or cover in his own zone is going to sink your ship. I just don't buy it. And don't get me wrong, because I'm going to contradict this exact phrase in a minute with Vegas and the Golden Knights and Shipachyov. But in this particular case, this kid's ready to play. Let him play. He's ready to help on the power play. The power play for the Islanders is abysmal right now. It's abysmal. And by the way, I think if Pulak is not trustworthy on the defensive end, fine, keep him out. He's a defenseman. This is one forward on the third line. Take a look at what Philadelphia is doing with Nolan Patrick. Guy's playing third line. He's not playing mega minutes. You think about all the young guys in the league. Dubois in Columbus, Heishier in New Jersey, Patrick in Philadelphia. Okay, granted, they're all higher picks. But, you know, that's where the league is. Let your young guys go. Let them play. I'd rather this team be winning games 6-4, you know, than be, you know, winning games in overtime 3-2. And I'm especially surprised at Doug Wade because I would think that he'd be a more all-out offensive guy. Hey, let's get it done. Let's ram the puck down their throats and keep a guy like, you know, Hosang that can do that and carry the puck in the zone and keep the puck on his stick, then send him down and not have that. Andrew Ladd is a top 6 forward. Brock Nelson scores 20 goals plus for the most part. And that's a top 6 forward on a lot of teams in the NHL. And that's your third line. I mean, come on. To me, the writing's on the wall. You have a chance to have a great first line and 2 second lines and a really good fourth line. And they're choosing to keep, you know, Nikolai Kulemin in the lineup. I don't get it. I don't get it, man. Alan Quine's going to stick with this team and Nikolai Kulemin's going to stay in the lineup. For what? What are you going to do? Sit Kulemin and then put Quine in? And where's that got you? Give me the dynamic offensive player with a lot of potential upside who slips on defense every now and then. I'd rather go through the growing pains with him because I honestly think when all things are equal, the positive is going to outweigh the negative in Joshua Hosang's case. And that's just how I feel. That's just how I feel. You have too many fourth line players on this roster. Why? Because they're defensively responsible? How about give John Tavares some help on the offensive side of things? How about when him and Eberle get off the ice, you send out another offensive threat or another line that's really hard to play against? So suddenly now, when Tavares is playing your top defenseman and the Bailey, Barzal, Beauvillier line is maybe taking the second group, guess who gets to play against that third pairing that maybe is not so good on the other team? Joshua Hosang, Andrew Ladd, and Brock Nelson. Or vice versa, Bailey, Barzal, and Beauvillier. It doesn't matter. That's how you win hockey games. You have better matchups. Alan Quine in the lineup. Wrong. Makes me sick, man. Makes me sick. I'm usually down with all this. I'm usually down with, hey, let the youngster get a little bit more time to... Ho-Sang's had the time, man. Give it to him in the video sessions after the game. Sit him a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? Like, give him a little bit less playing time. Let him really understand what it's all about. Show him that way. I don't think that he's going to learn that necessarily in Bridgeport. It just, to me, it's inferior. It's not as good quality. The goaltending's not as good. Like, it's just not good. It's just not good. Alan Quine is going to draw back in the lineup. Now, Quine's down in Bridgeport just on a conditioning, but he's going to come back up. Now, when Quine is healthy, who do you take out of the lineup? Beauvillier? Barzell? Come on, man. Come on, Dougie. I know you're better than that. I'm expecting a lot more out of you, big dog. I want to give a little kudos to former boss of mine, Chris Bada, who is back with SNY doing Islanders Point Blank. You know, he sort of wrote a little... his blog post today or yesterday, whenever it was a little bit of like a guide for Joshua Ho-Sang. Like, smile on your way out. Tell the coaches you'll be back. Go down to Bridgeport. Sit with Mike Fernabio over at the Connecticut Post and do the story. You know, give him a good story. Say all the right things. And don't worry, you'll be back, kid. You know, kind of give him a real rah-rah thing. Kind of thing that comes with the experience of being in the National Hockey League and seeing this time and time again. Chris Bada is a brilliant guy, and I just want to give him credit for that, because you take a look at the Connecticut Post today, and there's Michael Fernabio's article, and he does a great job, and it's all about Joshua Ho-Sang being back down in Bridgeport, and he does say all the right things. There's the quotes right there. This on ctpost.com. Joshua Ho-Sang a little surprised to find himself Thursday morning looking up at the photos of Bridgeport Sound Tigers captains that now line the wall outside the team's dressing room, new since he last played here. It's okay, though. I really love everyone here, said Ho-Sang, sent down on Wednesday. I don't know. I feel like happy is a word people misconstrue, but I'm not mad. Obviously, I want to play in the NHL. Who doesn't? For me, I wasn't playing. They thought this was the best scenario for me. He did what he needed to do. He went down there and he said all the right things. Now, Brent Thompson, who I think is a spectacular guy, had the chance to meet him in the past. Smart hockey guy. His son's doing killer stuff down there in St. Louis. He said, we'll get him playing that detailed hockey the Islanders want. Hard routes. That detailed hockey. Hard routes. Guys, come on. He's going to learn that after years and years and years of playing in the game. That's how he's going to learn it. He's going to learn it up with the Islanders, not down in Bridgeport. All right, back to Shipachyov here as we go into the opposite, really, scenario of what we were talking about with Joshua Ho-Sang. Shipachyov makes the big signing in Vegas, is not on the opening night roster, doesn't really do all that well in the preseason. I think he missed, 3 games? Then he gets called back up. He scored a goal in that time. Looked like things were going to be happening really well for the Vegas Golden Knights. Then there was a scuttlebutt, and, he wasn't happy being sent down. McPhee talked to him. McPhee addressed the media. He said everything is cool. And then we get the news yesterday from Elliot Friedman, which the tweet was, the NHL's biggest early season success, 7-1 Las Vegas, have given Vadim Shipachyov's reps permission to look around for a trade. Just hasn't been a fit. Now, Peter Spavoda is his representative. And I got to say, this is the complete opposite thing. This is an issue where the player needs to have patience. Yeah, Shipachyov was proven in the KHL. Yeah, everybody thought that Vegas was getting a steal when they were the ones who got him at a 2-year deal, $4.5 million. But the issue is McPhee grabbed all those defensemen that he thought he would be able to trade, and I think he's still going to be able to trade them. But, Shipachyov was just one of the guys that he was able to send down. It was a numbers game in this case. It's a numbers game with Hosang too, but in this case, it's a numbers game where you have a young player where you're going to get him in the lineup once you're able to make those moves, and he's going to be fine. He's not starting off the greatest. Get him in the A, get him a little bit more accustomed to the game, get him used to these states here, see what he can do where it comes to that sort of scenario, and then you can make a move and bring him back up again. What you want to avoid is the situation that you have right now with the Golden Knights and Shipachyov, where McPhee turns around and says, well, go ahead. If you can find a trade, go ahead. Where's he going to find a trade? When an agent has to go find a trade, I don't think it ever really works out all that great, because instead of two GMs talking, it's so hard to make a trade, especially now in the salary cap era. When two GMs talk, they have to figure out what they're willing to give up and what the most they can get in return is. So they're working on those two levels. The other GM is working on the same. They have to figure out what they can do, and as soon as they get to a comfortable place, they're done. In this particular case, the agent has to go out to the teams, figure out who's interested, talk to 30 general managers now, not 29 anymore. Talk to 30 general managers, who's interested, figure out who is. What would you be willing to give up? Okay, now he's got to go back to George McPhee. Well, this is the team that's interested. Well, what do they want to give up? Well, maybe this. Well, that's not good enough. Okay. And then would McPhee pick up the phone and then call that GM directly? He might, but he's got no skin in the game. He's got no desire to do it. You know what I mean? He's going to trade the player because the player wants to be traded. Yes. Could he lose him back to the KHL and get absolutely nothing in return? He could. But when you look at it from this scenario, this is a really interesting case where it's the Vegas Golden Knights. They were nothing 6 months ago. You know what I mean? Like they were nothing. They were names on a chalkboard somewhere. And now they're a legit team. It's not like you gave up a draft pick or players to get him. It's not like years in your culture, in your system, getting him to where he is, and now you're going to lose him, because there's none of that. They have no allegiance to Shipachyov. It costs them nothing. They're not going to have to pay him if he leaves, if he doesn't report. They're going to hold on to his rights. He has no power in this situation. And we've already seen the bad response because, Montreal, who's crazy hungry for a good centerman, I already said they're not interested in Shipachyov. Like, that's the first. Well, okay, who needs a centerman really bad? Montreal and the New York Rangers. Let's go to Montreal. Montreal, would you like this guy? Maybe a Galchenyuk straight up for Shipachyov. Let them change sceneries and see what works out. Montreal, who stinks, said, meh. Would you like Shipachyov? Meh. Now, when one of the teams who desperately needs a center says, meh, where does that leave you and your value? Shipachyov's value right now plummeted. Nothing. Wrong. Sorry. It's a bad move. It's a bad move for Shipachyov, and I don't think it winds up well for him. He's got to suck it up, go down to Chicago, and figure it out. Now, I get that he's unhappy. I get that he's away from home, but this is what it's like to be an athlete. I get that he's 30 and he's not 22 on that entry level deal and coming up through the ranks and all that stuff. I get that there's a little bit of a different scenario, but you have no currency. You don't have 3-4 seasons of a great record to fall back on. You have what you did in the KHL, which got you $4.5 million a year for 2 years, but no team is going to make that mistake twice, especially if 5 games into the season, you already have an attitude problem. If there's one thing I will say about the National Hockey League, they don't put up with attitude. They really don't. They'll let plenty of skill walk through the door if it's got too much attitude. This is a team sport, man. Doesn't matter how good you are. This is a team damn sport. They will not put up with that garbage. No way, no how. Now, I'm curious as to why Gerard Gallant wasn't playing him that much more than 10 minutes. Maybe he wasn't getting his routes down right. Maybe he wasn't, great on the defensive side of the puck. Maybe there's just a barrier there with the language and Shipachyov not understanding some of the things that is coming through to him, or maybe not understanding the tone when Gerard wants an adjustment being made. I don't know what it is, but here's the thing. At 7-1, you can't exactly question Gerard Gallant right now. You just can't do it. Which brings me to my final point of the evening for this hockey talk show. And my apologies if you're listening to this in the morning or watching in the morning, which is that a lot of people have been saying, are the Vegas Golden Knights legit? Are the Vegas Golden Knights legit? I'm here to say the Vegas Golden Knights are legit. Right. They're a legit team. Okay, so they beat Arizona twice. Does that make them a bad team because one of them was in an overtime victory? No, I'm sick of people going like they've had an easy schedule. They've had more home games. That's the only advantage. They're a expansion team. It's a smart move to give them home games. You want to get the crowd into it. This is the best case scenario for the NHL and the Vegas Golden Knights. They got a lot of home games and they won most of them. That's going to do really well for their gate over the next, really the whole season. If they go on a 5-game losing streak, people have already bought their tickets. I'm sure that's helped their season tickets. I'm sure that's just helped their gate. And I'm just sorry. They didn't just beat up on bad teams. They beat Dallas, who Dallas isn't doing all that bad. Not doing all that great. But they're in a playoff spot right now. They're 5-4. They're over 500. They've beat... all right, so they beat Arizona the next 2 games. They beat Detroit. Granted, Detroit not doing as well as they'd like. They're 4-5. They're out of a playoff spot right now in this early season. Okay, I get it. They beat Boston. Boston's 3-3. They're not an easy team to beat. They beat Buffalo. Okay, there's another easy one. They also beat, lest we not forget, St. Louis and Chicago. Now, here are 2 of the greatest teams in the whole damn sport. Chicago's 5-3. Tane, Caves, Keith. Vegas beat them. Quenneville behind the bench. St. Louis is 7-2. And one of the only 2 teams they lost to, St. Louis, was the Vegas Golden Knights. Guys, come on. It's a legit team, man. It's a legit team. I'm sick of people like, it's been a soft schedule. It's been an easy schedule. Well, look, they got the 5-4 Colorado Avalanche, and then they got to get on the road and travel and play the Islanders, who are 5-3, and the Rangers, who are struggling at home at 2-6. But by the way, at a back-to-back. Now, I think the Rangers are off to a bad start. I don't think they're a great team, but I think playing against them and Lundqvist on a back-to-back kind of sucks. So we'll see what this team is really made of. But I think if they can take 2 out of the next 3 games, even the haters can't say that Vegas had an easy schedule, because that's not an easy schedule whatsoever. Fun quick hit tonight. I know we spent a lot of time on the Islanders again, and Joshua Ho saying it just really digs at me that this franchise, who I like to give more credit than not, I'm a fan of Garth Snow's. I do think he's at the end of his rope, but I do think the Eberle deal was good. By the way, how great does he look in this Eberle deal? Eberle, who hasn't scored yet for the Islanders, has still been putting up points and looks great on Tavares' wing. Ryan Strome is damn near invincible in Edmonton. Edmonton is struggling and the Islanders are above 500. It's early yet, but the early returns on that trade is all in the favor of the New York Islanders. Garth Snow's done a lot of smart things. He's at the end of his rope. I do believe that. I do believe this is his last season if they don't have some big sort of success. I do believe he needs to add some more pieces, mid-season. Maybe a winger who's maybe a scoring forward who's not, who's on a team that's not going anywhere. Maybe a better defenseman that can come in there and sort of help that top 3 mix. But Pelech has been good. Hickey's been Hickey. He's okay. Not my favorite guy. Not a guy I would draft, but he's been doable. He's been workable, But anyway, it just digs at me that they continue to make these mistakes with these young guys. They haven't been great in handling many of them. And I just want to see them do it right. Brock Nelson's great, and he doesn't get a lot of the respect. He didn't get the contract he wanted. Same thing with Calvin DeHaan. He's a little unhappy with his contract. I just want to see them bring up a guy and let them be a part of the fabric and be happy and be good. Let's see if they can do that. Interesting what's going on in Vegas. I think they're legit. Let's see how those next 3 games go. The Shipachyov thing, I think he's dead. I don't know what kind of trade that works out for. Vegas holds all the power in this. Shipachyov has not a lot of currency. You got to find a GM that can make the sacrifice. Now, in years past, I think the Rangers would have went for this hook, line, and sinker. Hook, line, and sinker. They would have went for this. No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. They would have went for it. But I don't know if the new Rangers are exactly going to be, making those same sort of moves that the old Rangers would have. I just don't know. We'll see what happens. If you're listening on the podcast, rate and review, please. If you're on Facebook, the numbers are really growing very fast. Thanks so much. Like our page, follow and get notifications. On YouTube, subscribe, hit the little bell, and make sure you're getting all the notifications for when the live shows roll around. If there's anything you want to talk about, I want to hear from you. I've been seeing some good response on Facebook comments and YouTube comments. Could pick it up a little bit on Twitter. Phenomenal response on Instagram. We've been having a killer response on Instagram there. So, shoot me a question if you have it, of course, at Hockey Talk Show, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That's at Hockey Talk Show. And I'll see you guys on the next shift.